was 19 when I met him. He was a few years older and seemed mature, stable. We hit it off quickly, and for the first few months, things were great. But slowly, he started to change. It was subtle at first. He'd ask where I was going, who I was with, and when I'd be back. I brushed it off as concern. It escalated from there. If I did not text him back immediately, he'd blow up my phone with messages, wanting to know why I wasn't answering. If I went out with friends, I'd get a long guilt trip afterward about how I was neglecting him. I was young and inexperienced in relationships, but something about the way he was acting did not feel right. One night, after another one of his meltdowns over something small, I decided I'd had enough. I broke it off with him, and he did not take it well. Actually, that's putting it lightly. He completely lost it. Crying, screaming, begging. It was brutal, but I knew I had to get out. And at first, his reaction was what you'd expect from a bitter ex. Constant texts, calls, showing up at places he knew I'd be. And it was annoying, but I thought he'd move on eventually. He didn't. After 6 months of this, I started seeing him everywhere. He just happened to be walking down the same street as me, or accidentally show up at the same grocery store. And it felt like no matter where I went, he was there. I decided to move. I couldn't quit my job right away, but I thought if I changed my address, he might lose track of me. Nope. He was still there, popping up randomly like some kind of nightmare that would not go away. Over the next few years, I moved 3 more times, changed jobs twice, and kept my phone number restricted to only close friends. But he always found me. No social media, no public profiles, nothing. And yet he always knew where I was. It got to the point where I couldn't trust anyone. I was convinced that one of my friends had sold me out, or that my phone company had me listed in some directory. It made me paranoid. Meanwhile, his behavior escalated. The encounters got worse. I don't want to get into the details. It's too much. But I will say that I lived in a constant state of fear. I couldn't sleep. I barely ate, and my work started to suffer. I was a wreck. I went to the police a few times, but they did not take it seriously. Stalking is a slow burn, and apparently I did not qualify for immediate help. It wasn't until one of the incidents got bad enough that I went back to the police, and they finally decided to step in. A restraining order was filed. I thought maybe this time things would change. Then, 2 months later, I woke up to a headline in the paper. Tax office scandal. Employees caught accessing private information. My ex was the main guy. Turns out, he'd been using his job at the National Tax Office to get all of my information. And every time I changed my address, phone number, or job, he had instant access to it through my tax records. That's how he kept finding me. Before the court case could even start, he deleted himself. I wish I could say I felt sad or conflicted, but I didn't. I cried, but it wasn't from grief. It was relief. Years of fear, paranoia, and stress evaporated in an instant, and it was over. I've moved on since then. My life's back to normal, or at least as normal as it can be after something like that. The only upside? Well, at least I'll never have to fill out another change of address form again. When I was about 19, I met a guy who worked at the subway near my job. Let's call him Mike. He seemed like a decent enough person. Friendly, easy to talk to, and he asked me out on a date after a couple of casual conversations. I figured, why not? The date was fine, nothing mind-blowing, but we had a decent time. Things started off pretty normal, but after about a week, he began asking me for money. At first it was small stuff, like $5 for gas or soda, and I did not think much of it. But then, the ask started getting bigger, like a couple hundred to get him by for the week or so. I never gave him anything, and it was becoming a bit of a red flag. Around the same time, he started talking about moving in together, which was completely out of the blue. We'd only been seeing each other for 2 weeks, and he was already talking like we were in some serious relationship. Things got even weirder when we would go out. He'd randomly start screaming in public, or singing gibberish at the top of his lungs. He always claimed he was just having fun, but it was beyond embarrassing. People would stare, and I was mortified. It didn't feel like fun. It felt like he was trying to get attention in the worst way possible. Then there was my dog. This dog loves everyone. I'm talking wagging his tail at strangers, rolling over for belly rubs from delivery guys. That kind of dog. But with Mike, my dog would never let me near him. Every time Mike tried to get close, my dog would growl and snap at him. This wasn't normal behavior from him at all, so that only added to the uneasy feeling I was getting. By the end of the second week, I'd had enough. I broke up with him over the phone because, honestly, his erratic behavior had me nervous. I did not want to deal with him in person. And man, did he flip out. He started showing up at my job so often that my manager had to ban him from the building. My coworkers even started walking me to my car because he'd be lurking in the parking lot. It was like he knew where I'd be all the time. I couldn't even go to the grocery store without running into him. And then there were the texts. So many texts and emails about how we were meant to be and how he couldn't live without me. And it was overwhelming. The worst part happened one night when he showed up at my house. And it was late, around midnight, and I was home alone. He knocked on my door and told me to come outside. I told him to leave or I'd call the cops. He started sobbing, like full-on hysterical crying, and I just went back inside and locked the doors. The next day, I was working on some school stuff when I heard a rustling by the front door. At first, I thought it was just the dog or maybe the mailman, but then my dog started barking and growling like crazy. The doorbell rang, and I figured it was just a solicitor or something. But then someone started messing with the door handle. I grabbed a broom because it was the only thing within reach, and then I heard the door open. Mike had somehow gotten in. My dog lunged at him, trying to bite him, and I locked myself in the bathroom, screaming that I call the cops. I guess that scared him because he bolted. I called my neighbor, who was ex-military, and he came over to check the place. Mike was gone by then, but my dog had a couple of scratches from the struggle. Thankfully, nothing serious. The next day, I filed for a restraining order, and my dad contacted Mike's father, who seemed as horrified as I was. Mike kept sending me weird emails for a while, but he never came by the house again. I've moved since then, and I'm happily married now, but that was one of the scariest experiences I've ever had. All of that happened just within 3 weeks. So yeah, lesson learned. When your dog doesn't like someone, listen to the dog. The craziest thing my ex ever did to me wasn't leaking photos of me in my underwear online, though that was horrible. No, the worst thing he did happened one night when I was home alone, and to this day, I still can't fully shake the memory. At the time, I lived with my mom. She worked nights a lot, and I was often home alone by myself in the evenings. We lived in a pretty quiet neighborhood, so I didn't always lock the door when I was home. That was my first mistake. I had just finished up a long day at work and decided to take a shower. I wasn't thinking about anything but relaxing, completely unaware that I was in serious danger. I went through my routine as usual, washed my hair, shaved my legs, all that stuff. When I finally stepped out of the shower, towel wrapped around me, I froze. You know how you just feel something sometimes? Like the air shifts and you know something's not right. That's how I felt. I didn't hear anything, but I suddenly became hyper-aware of the fact that I wasn't alone in the house. I stood there for a second, listening, my heart pounding. Then I saw it. A pair of shoes, his shoes, peeking out from underneath my bed. I didn't scream, didn't run. I couldn't. There was no time. My phone was on the counter, and I picked it up, trying to stay as calm as possible. I dialed 911, praying the operator would understand me without making it obvious what was happening. 911, what's your emergency? The voice said. I forced myself to sound casual. Hey, Mom, are you close? I might need you to pick something up, I said. There was a pause. Then the operator's voice came back. Ma'am, you've contacted the wrong person. Mom, I asked you, are you close? I repeated, my voice shaking just slightly. I need help with something. Ma'am, are you unable to talk but need help? Yes, Mom. I felt like I was going to throw up. You'll need to put your name and street name on the envelope, Mom, I said, giving the address. Thank you, ma'am. I'll send help immediately, the operator said. I hung up, my hands trembling. As soon as I put the phone down, he crawled out from under the bed. I had to force myself not to back away. We need to talk, in the wake of chaos, he said, using the stupid username I had when we first started dating. His voice was calm, almost casual, like we were just running into each other on the street. Look, I don't want to disturb you, but did you get my letter? I did not let my voice shake. Yes, I lied. I need some time to think about it. Would you like some tea? I smiled, hoping I didn't look as terrified as I felt. He nodded like this was all normal, like he wasn't just hiding under my bed like a total psycho. Tea sounds good. I was praying, begging the police would arrive soon. My hands shook as I reached for the kettle, pretending I was going to make tea. Then, a knock on the door. I nearly collapsed with relief. I ran to the door, opened it, and they were there. 2 police officers. I couldn't hold back the tears, and it took everything I had not to hug them. They walked in and immediately questioned him. My ex tried to act innocent, saying I invited him over, but the officers weren't buying it. They searched him and found a knife and a Beretta tucked in his jacket pocket. He did not have a license for that either. They arrested him for trespassing and carrying a concealed weapon. He did some time in state prison, and I filed a restraining order. The photos he leaked still float around the internet, but honestly, that's the least of my worries now. I've learned my lesson, though. I never go to sleep without checking under the bed and making sure every door is locked. It's not paranoia, it's preparation. Because once someone breaks into your life like that, you don't get to feel safe again. Not completely. I dated this girl, Jamie, on and off for about 4 years. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags from the start. Her whole family was seriously messed up. Her dad, especially, took creepy to a whole new level. He would stalk us. Yeah, her own father. I remember one time we were hanging out in a room, and suddenly there was this light shining through the window. It was him, standing outside with a flashlight, just staring in. Another time, we locked the doors to our place because we knew he'd try to break in. It didn't matter. The guy had no sense of boundaries. He'd sneak in whenever he wanted. And then, there were the bike rides. I don't know why, but anytime we were outside, whether it was a park or just walking down the street, there he'd be, casually rolling up on his bicycle, pretending it was all just a coincidence. We'd catch him sometimes, just standing outside the living room window, staring. Not saying anything, just staring. Jamie acted like it was normal, said he was protective. Looking back, that was just another sign I should have gotten out sooner. But I didn't. We stayed together, and despite everything, I thought we were in love. That feeling got complicated, though, especially after I found out she'd been cheating on me multiple times. She'd apologize, promise it wouldn't happen again, and like an idiot, I forgave her. I always thought we could work it out, but it wasn't long before I hit my breaking point. I couldn't take it anymore, so I started distancing myself, meeting other people. That's when things really got out of hand. I started hanging out with this girl from a few towns over. Nothing serious, just a way to get my mind off things. But every time we'd meet up, I noticed something weird. I always felt like we were being followed. Turns out, I was right. My ex was having people keep tabs on me. She had this whole network of informants. And get this, she even roped in the guy she cheated on me with. She'd convince them to follow me or confront me. Anytime I met a new girl or even started talking to someone, Jamie would somehow find out and contact them. She'd tell them lies or try to intimidate them into staying away from me. And most of the time, it worked. I could not keep a relationship going without her interference. But things changed when I met my new girlfriend. She was not easily scared off like the others. Jamie must have sensed that because she escalated. I'd walk outside and see her car parked down the street. She'd follow me everywhere I went, sit outside my girlfriend's house, send these long, unhinged voicemails, and harass her on Facebook. She did not stop there, though. She was still manipulating those guys, telling them I was abusive, trying to get them to fight me. And yeah, some of them actually tried. I had people throw rocks at me more than once because of her. It all came to a head one day when my girlfriend decided she had enough. She told Jamie that if she did not back off, she was going to beat the crap out of her. They set up a meeting, and I figured it was just going to be more drama. But my girlfriend was serious. She was ready to throw down. Jamie, though, wasn't. She showed up, but she brought 2 huge friends with her, thinking they'd help her intimidate my girlfriend. What followed was this insane verbal brawl between all of them, but my girlfriend did not back down. Eventually, Jamie must have realized that she wasn't going to win because she finally gave up. She stopped showing up at random, stopped the messages, stopped sending people after me. The guys who tried to fight me even apologized once they figured out how insane she was. It's been 8 years since that all went down, and while she's mostly left me alone, she still tries to message me from time to time. It's like she can't let it go, but I'm not stupid enough to go down that road again. Lesson learned. If your ex's dad is stalking you, run, because she's probably not all that stable either. When I was in the summer between 4th and 5th grade, something weird happened that still creeps me out to this day. Someone called my house asking for me. That wasn't the strange part. It was a man's voice, and my dad had answered the phone. I was playing outside at the time, but later that day, Dad comes up to me and asked if I was expecting any calls. I wasn't. He said a guy had called asking for me, which was odd because, at that age, all my friends were girls. Dad thought it was weird for some older-sounding man to be calling a 9-year-old. He told the guy I wasn't home and let it go, but it stuck with him. About an hour later, the phone rang again, and this time my mom answered it. It was the same guy, asking if I was home yet. She thought it was strange too. His voice sounded older, maybe late teens or early 20s. My mom told him I wasn't home, just like my dad had earlier. But the guy's response? He lost it. He started screaming, "You fucking tell me where she is. God damn it, fucking tell me now." My mom hung up immediately. She did not play around. She called the cops right after that, but the police said there wasn't much they could do. This was back before caller ID was common, but they told her about *69 to trace the number if the guy ever called again. I did not hear much else about it after that. My parents gave me some strict rules. No answering the phone, no being home alone, no running errands by myself. They even told my teachers at school, so I wasn't allowed to go anywhere without an adult watching me. It was annoying, but At the time, I did not think much of it. It was just one of those things that happened and then disappeared. I figured the guy had just moved on. It wasn't until years later, when I was an adult, that I found out the full story. I was talking to my mom about creepy things from our past, and she casually mentioned that the calls had gone on for months. The same guy kept calling, asking where I was. Every time he'd get angry when my parents wouldn't tell him anything. He'd say he knew I was at school that day, or that he'd seen me around. He accused my parents of lying, and he threatened that he was going to find me. My parents never told me the details, probably because they didn't want me freaking out. I had no idea the calls were still happening, and by the time they stopped, I pretty much forgotten the whole thing. Nothing ever came of this, as far as I know. I never met this guy, and neither did my parents. He never seemed to know anything about me other than my name. I guess he was just some creep that was trying to mess with us. Looking back, I'm glad my parents were protective. I guess some people have worse things happen to them in situations like that. Me? I just got some extra supervision and a lesson in not answering the phone. Could have been worse. Hey, what's up guys? It's Spooky. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You survived. If you did not know, I have an Instagram. Follow me on there so we can connect. I also have a Patreon. On there, you'll have direct access to me and can see the upcoming videos, polls, and soon-to-be exclusive stories only shared on there. If that's something that interests you, please consider joining. That's all I have for you guys tonight. Stay spooky, and I'll see you in the next video.